Yeah, see, told you I wouldn't be another month. Howdy folks, and welcome back to Making a Fakemon Region, the show where I try to make a Fakemon region, a hypothetical place, what I'm gonna fill up with fantastical creatures what I've made up, all based around different cultures and things around the world. Okay? Okay. Now, at the end of last episode, I teased that the next episode would be about a watermelon, a duck thing, and a fox. And well, that episode is still gonna come, I just wanted to postpone it a little bit for a new thing I wanted to do. For those who don't know, we're in the middle of Pride Month! Hooray! It's the month where we celebrate love and friendship and to show how far homosexual rights have gone. So all in all, a great month. And when I started this idea for a region, what combines all parts of the world all into one area, a big question of mine was, would I make any monsters based around sexuality? Because if I was going to make monsters based around, other cultures and religions and ways of life, it's a region based around the diversity of the world after all, right? But at the same time, I understand that it might be a little bit risky because, well, I guess it's near enough impossible to just create one creature what's meant to represent an entire culture. There's a type of OCs will get a lot of beef with people, and they're like country humans, and that whole point of them is literally making one character what's meant to represent an entire culture. And most people find it usually offensive. And especially in this context where, hypothetically speaking, all these monsters are meant to be in a game, there's always this risk of, what if I make the monster too insensitive, or maybe it doesn't represent it well enough, or maybe something else just comes up and it ends up backfiring immediately. And it's not just for sexuality either. As I've mentioned, I've got plans for some monsters based on certain types of religion, and again, it's quite worrying, just in case, well, what if the monsters come off as insensitive or too generalised? However, since it is Pride Month and all, I realised, for this episode at least, instead of making just one or two monsters to represent all of the sexualities, which, as I mentioned, is more or less impossible, I could just make a monster specifically based on the concept of pride and feeling comfortable in their own body. Which at the end of the day, I feel like what is one of the most important things about Pride Month. But before we jump in, I wanted to just give out a few disclaimers. The first one being, quite frankly speaking, I'm an idiot. So if I, in this episode, say anything what comes off as insensitive or ignorant or anything what might be seen as being rude to any other sexualities or just anyone in general, please feel free to call me out and I'll apologise. And, well, I 100% guarantee no insult was ever intended in this entire video at all. And point two, if you've seen my other videos, you're gonna know my art isn't exactly the best. I wouldn't call myself an artist by any stretch of the imagination. So don't take the final design of this monster as an insult or anything. I tried, trust me. And I think that's it! So, on to the monsters! Now, for those who've seen my previous videos, especially the starter videos, you'll know that I love making monsters that will have a story and can be relatable. If you remember my starters, I had the weird kid what struggled to fit in. But yeah, as she grew up, she somehow found her own niche in life, and well, she grew up being comfortable who she is. Well, the cactus who felt like was born with a disadvantage, yet he's tried his best to work out, and well, as he grew up, he got more and more comfortable being himself to the point where, well, as an adult, he's proud of himself. And those changes to those kind of ideas, I really like doing them. So I thought it would be a good idea to kind of use that in this context. So when thinking of what animal to make into a monster to represent the concept of pride, my first idea was a swan. Mainly because, well, it's just an elegant, beautiful bird, and, well, the whole two swans next to each other make the love heart, and since, well, pride is, about love and friendship and everything, I thought it fit. I later decided to make it into a more peacock after a friend recommended me the animal. What? I'm kind of surprised I didn't think of myself. Peacocks are of course known for having huge plumage and are usually the animal to represent pride in general anyway. There was one part of the swan where I wanted to keep this design however, and that was, well, baby swans, or the childhood story based on baby swans, The Ugly Duckling. These species of birds, unfortunately, don't usually look after their children. They're the type of animal what just lays their eggs and goes, and once the chicks hatch, well, they're on their own to defend themselves and just start to grow up. Now, a couple hundred years ago, these birds were amazingly bright. Every part of their body was a different colour. It could be the brightest sunny day ever, and you could still manage to point them out and be blinded by them. However, sadly, their brightness also brought a lot of problems. Due to their bright colours, they're very easily noticeable. Like I mentioned, you can point them out in almost any crowd. It's a shame because, well, predators can very easily find them and, well, I'm sure you can know what a predator's going to do to a baby bird. And, well, because of this, other animals or monsters tend to avoid the baby bird as well because, well, they don't want to be seen with that. What if they get attacked themselves? So they're usually almost always left alone. Now, for a little science lesson in these birds are some of the only monsters in the entire region what can reproduce essentially no matter what. They have both of their, well, baby makers, let's say. Now, you might think that's a good thing for their survival, but unfortunately, well, it didn't quite work out that way. For those who don't know the concept of Pokemon, breeding your Pokemon is a very common thing to do. However, with these birds, they're not very easy to breed because, although they can breed with essentially any other gender of themselves, each different bird is, well, different. Only some of them prefer to mate with other males, only some of them prefer to mate with other females, some of them can mate with the opposite gender, the same gender, any genders or whatever, or some don't even want to reproduce at all. You might think, well, of course it's the bird's choice, right? Why should the humans owning it decide for them? Well, they didn't think that way, unfortunately, a few hundred years ago, and because of this oddity, sadly this little creature was made fun of relentlessly by other trainers. Why would anyone want to waste their time with such a weak monster what can't even breed properly? So all in all, this bird was mistreated, bullied, just for being itself. So, well, over the last couple hundred years, it decided to, every time it hatched out of its shell, it, well, decided to stay in its shelter, well, try and protect itself, keep it hidden. It doesn't want to be seen anymore. Over the hundreds of years, its bright, colourful feathers and skin started to dwindle and fade away into, a meekish, greyish kind of tone. This is Bleg, a mix between blank, bland, and egg. Mistreated, lonely, and, well, just sad to be who it is. Luckily, it doesn't end there for little Bleg. As you know, most Pokemon can, Bleg can evolve. Let's get on to it. Bleg evolves into a new monster called Prilliant, a mix between Pride and Brilliant. I guess Prilliant can also be a pronunciation. But yeah, Prilliant is a completely different story. Like a couple of other Pokemon, Bleg evolves through happiness, meaning a trainer needs to let Bleg open its heart out and, well, show off its true colours. And that's what Prilliant's meant to be. Having Brilliant in its name is, well, no coincidence. Not only does Brilliant mean, well, bright coloured, which it definitely is, as you'll soon see, it also means very smart and talented, which I would say it does end up being. Now, although this started off as a peacock, I feel like it looked a bit more like an ostrich. I definitely did throw in some other bird inspirations in there, I suppose. So, similar to an ostrich, I reckon this can run extremely quick, and due to its bright colours, it's very talented in shows and parades and festivals. It's the bird what symbolises, in this region, happiness, you know? Like, there's literally never been a sad Prilliant. They're happy to be who they are, and not because of how they were treated when they were little, but in spite of it. Of course, they get a bit weird thinking about the past, but, well, they've grown up from that now. The past doesn't matter, they are who they are now, and, well, they've met other people who accept them to be who they are. That's why they were happy enough to evolve in the first place. And they're also incredibly clever. These birds are some of the only birds in the entire region to actually adopt other monsters, what aren't belonging to their own species. Due to some of them really not wanting to reproduce or just can't find a proper mate because, unfortunately, they are still relatively rare, they're known to look after other monsters what appear to have lost their own parents and, well, raises them like their own. And it's funny because, well, despite them adopting, it's actually helping their own species extremely well as well. Because what Prilliants like to do with the children they adopt is, well, educate them. Again, these are some of the only monsters what are known to educate other monsters and sometimes even other humans. And through this education, most monsters and now humans are starting to learn more tolerance towards the Prilliants and even their children, Blegs. It's very good. I'd say in the last 20 years, Bleg ownage has skyrocketed, well, because, well, people are starting to learn we shouldn't judge a book by its cover at all. We shouldn't make this monster feel like it's different just because of a personal choice or the way it wants to live its life. We should raise it like any other monster, and that's what they're doing. And now, although most Blegs are still, sadly, they still feel different and perhaps scared to be who they are, but once they evolve into Prilliants, they're proud of who they are no matter what. And that's what they teach to other monsters and even other humans who perhaps also only want to go out with other people of the same gender. They should all be proud of themselves no matter what. Sure, there's always going to be some people, or again, more predators, what want to attack them or just not want to use them because they seem weird, but frankly, they don't need to matter to Prilliant. That's not Prilliant's problem, it's theirs, and they're happy to live their life regardless anyway. So anyway, that's Prilliant, just the happy pride bird. I feel like I rambled about them a lot more because, well, I only have 2 mons this episode. Usually I have like 5, so I need to space it quickly, but this time I took a little more time. A quick thing I wanted to mention about Prilliant was I'm not sure about its colours. Because I might end up redesigning these in the future anyway, but I'm not sure if the colours are like too bright or flashy. If you have any opinions on them, feel free to let me know. The idea I did have was, due to its wings being black and white, instead I was thinking that every time a Bleg evolved, there was a chance that it would become one of the, like, the wings would have different patterns on their wings. What would represent the LGBT community flags, stuff like that, you know? I didn't know if that would have been too preachy or not, though, but again, let me know what you think of these. But yeah, that is Bleg and Prilliant. Do you like them? Do you reckon you'd have them on your team or not? I don't know what types they would be, because I feel like they'd of course have flying, but maybe fairy, because they are just meant to spread happiness and joy anyway. They are the happy birds. So maybe fairy type, maybe. Or maybe just pure flying. I'm not sure yet. Was I too preachy making these? I hope not. I just wanted to... I don't know, I just wanted to make mons based on something a little more real than just mining bird. I do enjoy the simpler mons, but I feel like a few of them also do need to have at least a bit of relatability. But yeah, so next episode, again, we should be finally getting the watermelon, fox and duck thing. I hope you're all excited for that. And before I end the episode, since it is Pride Month, I do just want to say, although I feel like I don't need to say it, in case you're not aware, you are amazing just being who you are. And if anyone's or anything has made you feel uncomfortable being who you are, well, I am honestly truly sorry, and I can promise you, in the long run, it won't matter, because you'll grow up being proud of who you are, and as you should. You are amazing, doing what you're doing, living the way you're living, and you should be proud of who you are. I love you all incredibly dearly, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in a bit. Toodaloo!